Hi guys, this is a quick deep dive into the poetry strategy called I see, I think, I wonder. I love using this strategy because it helps out, especially whenever you guys are reading a poem, and a lot of times kids will just read it once, say they don't get it, and just guess on questions if they have questions. This strategy, you have to slow down. You have to read it 3 times. Poetry is meant to be read more than once. Instead of having pages upon pages upon pages to read, it's just condensed down to as short as possible, like less than a page. I'll give you a job to do each and every time. So the first time you're going to say, I see something, then you think about something, and then you wonder about something. Poetry should be read 3 times. And when you do the first read through, you're just looking for figurative language. And then you're just going to highlight, or in this case, what I've done is I've already given you guys some of questions where I basically say, what are the figurative language examples? You got to tell me what they are. And you also need to pay attention to repetition. Repetition is super important when it comes to poetry, because if the author took the time, like I said, in a story you can take as long as you want. You can make 1,000 pages if you want to in a story. But in a poetry, you're trying to keep it as short as possible. So if they repeat something, they want you to pay attention. For example here, in Edgar Allan Poe's poem, The Bells, he repeats the words, the bells, the bells, the bells. So if we read this actual excerpt, it goes, to the swinging and the ringing of the bells, bells, bells. Of the bells, 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 to the rhyming and the chiming of the bells. 11. It was 11 times it mentioned about bells, okay? Super important. Obviously has to do probably with the theme, and probably has to do, again, give an emphasis and a sense of urgency. You kind of felt like he was really trying to emphasize something. The next step is to read it one more time, and then this is where you're trying to figure out, what does it actually mean? I think this figurative language means blank. Okay, I like this little diagram here because when it comes down to any type of writing, poetry, a story, an email, a text message, your sender is your poet. The message or the theme is going to the receiver, but the receiver isn't actually getting that message, then there's no feedback, so the sender will not be, or the poet will be writing more stuff. This is a big cycle. So think about that cycle whenever you're thinking of these figurative language. Why did the author choose to use that metaphor? What do you think it means? I usually tell kids to look for these 3 things. I usually say, look at the title. Look for things that don't fit together. And also look at the point of view. How was it written? And also look at the structure. Remember that a poem is written in stanzas. Stanza 1 is usually kind of like a paragraph. I don't like using that word paragraph, but it's basically a group of lines. And a line is just a single line of words, just a row of words. That's all it is. Kind of like a sentence. The last step is the I wonder. Okay, whenever you are getting down to the nitty-gritty, you're on that 3rd read, you really spent time to sit here and think about all the things, the figurative language, what do they mean? Now we got to bring it all together and say, what does the author actually mean? What is the actual underlying theme here? I got 2 questions I usually try to ask kids. What does the poet trying to make me notice, like through repetition? And why is it important about the things I see or think? And then going into the theme. Okay, if you guys remember that I taught y'all how to find theme. We had snowball fights. And usually I try to tell kids that you don't want to do words like these. These are just topics. These are great to start with, but you need to go a little bit deeper than that. You could pick one of these words and kind of make it longer, but it's usually a sentence. So if you're going to say that, hey, the theme is love, it's kind of weak, okay? It's just, there's a lot of songs about love. There's different types of love. So that's where I'm going to ask you, okay, tell me more. So take your time and really think about all these different steps, because when you get down to it, these poems are not that long. We're not asking y'all to read pages and pages and pages. The I see, I think, and wonder is reading 3 times, but instead of just reading it 3 times straight through with no purpose, this gives you a purpose to think about.